Hi, this is Naomi with Sword and Steel, and today we're going to be checking out all of the models and how they build from the Seraphon army set for Warhammer Age of Sigmar. So in the set, we have a 10-man group of Saurus warriors. We have one 5-man group of Raptidon hunters and one group of Raptidon chargers, as well as a Slann Starmaster. We have a 10-model group of Saurus warriors, which can either be wielding clubs with shields or spears with shields. Clubs with shields have a 1-inch range, 3+ to hit, 3+ to wound, rend -1, and 1 damage. Spears, on the other hand, give you a 2-inch range, 4+ to hit, 3+ to wound, rend -1, 1 damage. So the difference between the clubs and the spears is the spears have a 2-inch range, the clubs have a 3+ to hit. So you have to decide one or the other, and you cannot have both spears and clubs in a single unit. These warriors come in a unit of 10 models, and one of them is the champion, which is picked out by his wearing a mask and having a slightly fancier club and shield. 1 in 10 models also can be a standard bearer, which adds +1 to the unit's bravery, and you have a couple different options for the standard's head, but that's purely aesthetic, so you just choose whichever one you want. 1 in 10 models can be a musician, which gives a +1 to charge and run rolls. There is no reason whatsoever to not have these specialty models in your unit, since they still count as wielding all of their weapons, but you do get extra pieces should you want to make a regular warrior instead, for some reason. The warriors are very straightforward to put together at about 8 pieces each, all of which fit together very smoothly, and though they are model posed, they look so similar enough to each other that I doubt you would ever notice that you had the same model if you put out multiple sets of these models, particularly when you start painting them. Also, all the heads can be added to any of the bodies, and any of the shields can be added to any of the bodies. Raptidon hunters and chargers. We have a 5-model group of Raptidon chargers and a 5-model group of Raptidon hunters. Surprisingly, you will want to build both, because one of the chargers' abilities is dependent on a unit of hunters being close by, and one of the hunters' abilities is dependent on a unit of chargers being close by. So you might as well use them to their maximum potential. The chargers are wielding only melee weapons, which are the Tepoch lances and their mounts' serrated fangs. And though the guide suggested that I added a moonstone club to the hip of each of the chargers, I chose not to do that because, rules-wise, only the hunters are wielding the clubs, not the chargers. Each unit of these Raptidon chargers have a champion, only recognizable because he's holding his lance up in the air in a charge order, as well as a musician who is wielding a horn, and a standard bearer who has a couple of different standards to choose from, though that, again, is for aesthetics alone. Another visible difference from the chargers and the hunters is that all of the chargers have feathers on their heads if you follow the assembly guide, while the hunters are all featherless, besides the champion. That's up to you whether you want to go that route or not, but that's what the guide suggests you to do. I say that because any of the heads can go on any of the bodies. The hunters have ranged weapons and melee weapons. All of them are wielding atlats, moonstone clubs, and their mounts have serrated fangs. So I haven't added the moonstone clubs to these bodies yet, but I will for the hunters. The standard bearer and the musician for the hunters would look much the same as they would for the chargers because they are not wielding their weapons. So I took the extra atlats from what was supposed to build the hunter champion and put them on the backs of my standard bearer and the hunter musician. Everything on the Raptidon is pretty set in stone, but you can add whichever tail you want to whichever Raptidon. Just be sure to line up the feathers of the tail to the spine. Also, though the skink riders have very particular little placements on each Raptidon, you could easily remove the little half circles on their feet, fill the holes in on the Raptidon's hides with putty, and place them as you like. Oh right, and the hunters are suggested to have bucklers, perhaps to better show that they're different from the chargers, but because they're save characteristic, is any better than the chargers, I chose to keep those shields off them, which you can since the model is completely done, whether you have the shield on them or not. Lastly, we have the Slan Starmaster. This kit is not for a new assembler. It's tricky and not necessarily easy to tell where what piece goes. And I personally enjoyed the project a lot because it's like a 3D puzzle where you have to put the early parts together correctly for the later parts to fit together well at all. And even if you do everything right, you may still find that some of the many vines on this model don't quite fit together due to maybe warp, but not in a big way. So there are a lot of different options on this model, completely aesthetic. You can change this piece next to the trunk. You can have this vine with a little flying snake on it. You can change this front piece. You can change the symbol here on the Slan himself. You can add a skink next to him. He's carrying and doing with his hands can change, and his head has 3 different options. This was made with the idea that you would use more than one on the battlefield, which is completely true once you know what they can do. Make sure you know how to assemble well before taking this guy on, or at least try fit at each and every step, because this one is a puzzle for sure. Oh, and one thing, you can follow every step of the assembly guide to a T, with the exception of the order of this back and this bottom. It's suggested to put the bottom piece on first and then the back. I do not suggest that though, because of a wee piece of vine sticking up on the bottom part that gets in your way when trying to add the back. So simply add the back first and then attach the bottom. There's no downside to switching the order like that. There is only good. Besides that though, you can follow the guide just as it suggests, choosing each option as you go. You will have a bunch of extra pieces from this kit, runes and vines and maybe a little skink and a flying snake. I would have put on the flying snake, but mine was missing part of its tail, so I'll just carve it a shorter one and put the little guy somewhere else at some point. And if I was to assemble another one, I might just have like multiple skinks around. I haven't decided where to put the skink. He's a completely separate model, and he's supposed to go on the left-hand side of the Slan, but I haven't decided whether to add him or not, or whether to keep him and put him on a terrain piece in the future. And that's everyone. Thanks for watching. Make certain to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this content. Make certain to comment below if you had any questions about any of the models that I didn't cover. Now, because of the Slan's difficulty in assembling, for anyone who's even probably in their first year of assembling, this one might be difficult. I'll be putting out a separate video with the Slan and assembling that fellow, just so that you know where every piece goes, because it's a bit of a puzzle, and I think you might want to just watch to see how it's put together before you try to do it yourself, if you're new to assembling or you just like assembling. If you do want to see that video, you should make certain to let me know in the comments below. Okay, that's it. Bye. Thank you very much, patrons and YouTube members. I now have YouTube membership enrolled, so if you want to support the channel easy peasy and sometimes see videos out early and use emojis that I create myself, then you should join the Steel Legion. And I really wish that the Seraphon had a way to be built that you didn't have to use this chubby toad. I'm not a fan of chubby toads. This big old chubby toad. I'm not a fan of him. And I'm putting something else in his throne. I do not know who. You should absolutely, if you've gotten this far, tell me, who should I put in his little throne for my Seraphon army? Oh, right. And this color is actually Croxagore scales. Croxagore scales are on my nails. Okay, bye.